Should you just throw out those old jumper cables and buy yourself a portable jump starter? After all, some of these products claim to provide up to 2200 amps. That's about twice as much as a car battery. Are they really just that good, or are some of these products just not going to deliver on the results they promise? Today we're going to be testing 8 different brands to see which brand is the best. In the first test, we'll measure the cranking amps produced by the portable jump starters at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll compare the lithium jump starters with 2 other types of jump starters, including a supercapacitor and sealed lead acid. We'll compare the cold cranking amps of these batteries when the temperatures are at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll see if any of these batteries are powerful enough to jump start a vehicle that has a dead battery. We'll see if any of these jump starters can start a diesel tractor without any help from the tractor's battery. Costing $70.99 is this Audew multifunction jump starter. It claims to have a battery capacity of 20,000 milliamp hours. Starting current 500 amps. Peak current 1500 amps. Operating temperature negative 20 degrees Celsius to approximately 60 degrees Celsius. Not only is it a jump starter, it's also a power bank and can be used to power electronics, and it has a flashlight. Pretty nice little carrying bag. Instruction manual. USB Type-C to USB Type-C. You can use a wall outlet to charge this device. When it comes to getting an accurate test result, you can't use these electronic testers. Now these are great for flooded lead acid batteries or AGM cells, but these will not provide accurate results on lithium-ion batteries. Instead, we'll be using a carbon pile tester. In addition to the carbon pile tester, which will give us the number of amps that this battery can produce, I've got an ohmmeter hooked up to the carbon pile tester, and we'll measure the current being produced by each one of these units. Okay, I just selected the boost button, which should give us some voltage. The voltage on the Audew is 16.43. What I'm going to do now is turn up the carbon pile tester and get as many amps as we can out of it. Under load, it peaked out at 304 amps and around 10 volts, dropping to 200 amps after 4 seconds before the tester shut off. That's actually pretty impressive and more than adequate to start most vehicles that have a partially drained battery. The Audew started off at 100%, it's now down to 84% after the test. Costing $74.99, the second least expensive product we'll be testing is this Viking Compact Power Pack, which is sold at Harbor Freight. It's a jump starter, USB 12-volt power bank, and a flashlight. Only 450 peak amps, 2.0 USB power. Ultra-long battery life. Lithium ion phosphate battery holds 70% charge after 2 years. Jump starter, AC power adapter, the jumper cables, and several other adapters. The Harbor Freight battery has a 12,000 milliamp hour capacity. The instructions to use this device are right on the side of the power pack, which is very nice compared to some of the other brands. I got the power pack for the Harbor Freight hooked up, and I don't have it turned on, but it's already producing 2.45 volts. You can see that it's present on both meters. Go ahead and power up the power pack. It's fully charged. The Harbor Freight Viking started out at 13.22 volts before the test and only produced 216 amps at 7.7 volts, which seems unlikely to start a vehicle with a partially drained battery. I just finished testing the Viking from Harbor Freight, and it won't even power up anymore. I don't know if this thing is just overheated or what exactly took place, but this unit seems to be out of power right now. We're going to come back later and see if we can get this unit to power up. Costing $84.99 is this Sanrock jump starter. It claims to deliver 2,000 cranking amps and has a 16,000 milliamp hour capacity. Jump start a car up to 20 times per charge. Charges any USB device like mobile phones, tablet, digital camera, etc. Pretty nice looking carrying bag. It claims to have a starting voltage of 1,000 amps and peak current 2,000 amps. As far as accessories, it only has one cable for USB to USB Type-C and the jumper cables. The Sanrock started out at 16.83 volts before the test and topped out around 344 amps at 10 volts. Costing $89.99 is this DB Power jump starter. It claims to be the king of power. 20,800 milliamp hours. Peak current 2,000 amps. Starting current 1,000 amps. Working temperature negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. In and out USB Type-C port. 2 different USB ports and a flashlight. USB 2.0 to USB Type-C. And the jumper cables. The DB Power started out at 16.53 volts. It didn't do quite as well as the Audew or the Sanrock, but much better than the Viking, and produced 291 amps at around 10 volts and lasted around 6 seconds. Costing $89.99 is this Topvision jump starter, which claims to have 2,200 cranking amps and a capacity of 21,800 milliamp hours. USB 2.0 to USB Type-C jumper cables. 2 USB outputs, flashlight. The Topvision started out at 16.76 volts. It delivered an impressive 338 amps and 10 volts, which is more than enough to get an engine to spin over and start. Costing $99.69, this Noco Boost Plus GB40 is the most expensive lithium-ion jump starter we'll be testing. It claims to deliver 1,000 amps. It claims to be able to start a 6-liter gasoline engine or a 3-liter diesel. Even though the Genius costs more, it only produces 6,400 milliamp hours compared to the competition, which costs less and produces around 20,000 milliamp hours. USB out, USB in, jumper cable port. Instead of a carrying case, there's a carrying bag. Jumper cables. The setup of the Noco seems a little bit different than the competition. The Noco actually includes the safety features inside the battery pack, not on the actual battery cables itself. Power cable, auxiliary power to USB, which is used to charge the device. GB40 User's Guide. The Noco GB40 started out at 11.93 volts and produced 243 amps at 7 volts. Costing $109.99 is this more traditional style of jump starter, which is a sealed lead acid that claims to produce 900 peak amps. It has a battery power indicator and also an emergency light. Auxiliary power supply, USB power supply. Rotate to provide power to the cables. The Duracell started out at 13.72 volts. It produced 255 amps at 7.4 volts, which is better than the Noco GB40 and the Harbor Freight Viking, but not nearly as good as some of the other products we're testing. Costing $129.99 is this Autowit 12-volt batteryless car jump starter. Ultra safe, convenient, fast, long lifespan, multi-application, reliable, and portable. Peak current is 700 amps. Working storage temperature minus 40 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. Battery charging time depends on the amount of voltage you have in your battery. The Autowit uses energy from your drained battery to charge itself and then start your car. The Autowit will work using a battery that's nearly drained. If your battery is over 10 volts, it takes between 1 and 1.5 minutes to charge the Autowit and then to start your car. If the voltage is over 6 volts but less than 10 volts, it takes approximately 3 minutes. If your battery is over 4 volts but less than 6, then it takes 10 minutes. The jumper cables and a supercapacitor. The Autowit doesn't have a carrying case, so you'll have to use this box. The Autowit supercapacitor started out at around 15.5 volts. It produced 261 amps at around 8 volts, but quickly dropped to under 200 volts and 7 amps. Jump starter performance on the bench is a combination of amps and volts. The Sanrock, Topvision, Audew, and DB Power all seem very close, with Audew producing slightly higher voltage under load. The Autowit, Duracell, Noco GB40, and Harbor Freight really struggled compared to the competition by producing under 270 amps and 8 volts or less. Car battery issues really seem to surface when the temperature drops below freezing. So let's place these jumper packs in a freezer that's set to around 0 degrees Fahrenheit and see how they perform. The temperature inside the freezer is negative 20 degrees, so close enough to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, so let's get the testing underway. The Audew really struggled to do its job, only producing 197 amps and 7 volts for about 2 seconds. During the second attempt, it did a lot better at 238 amps and 7.3 volts. The third attempt produced 284 amps at over 8 volts. So the lithium batteries do improve a lot as they warm up from being used. The Viking only produced 113 amps at 3.6 volts. What was that? Alright, the Harbor Freight device won't even power up after one attempt. So unfortunately, I think the Harbor Freight device is done for now. The Sanrock, just like the Autowit, needed 3 attempts to warm up a little, and on the third attempt produced 205 amps and 7 volts, which isn't nearly as good as the Audew. The DB Power also needed 3 attempts, and it produced 188 amps and 7 volts on the third attempt, so not nearly as good as the Audew jump starter. The Topvision also benefited from 3 attempts, with the third attempt producing 254 amps and 8 volts, which is just behind the Audew as far as performance. The Noco GB40 only produced 145 amps and 4 volts, which is slightly better than the Harbor Freight Viking, but not nearly as good as the competition. The Duracell started out at 13.32 volts. The Duracell produced 190 amps and 5.34 volts on the first attempt, and it didn't give up like the lithium-ion jump starters. I ended the test after around 10 seconds. After allowing each of the batteries multiple attempts, they warmed up and performance improved. The Audew seemed to come out on top with the Topvision in a close second, and the Sanrock doing fairly well also. The Noco Boost GB40 and Freight Viking really struggled, producing less than 150 amps and around 4 volts. Let's see if the bench testing results translate into real-world capability on an old Ford Ranger pickup truck that has a drained battery. The Ranger has a 2.9 liter V6. Up next, we're going to test the supercapacitor. It has about 3.45 volts in it, and this battery is extremely drained, a little over 7 volts. So what we're going to do is hook this up, allow it to charge the starter unit itself, and then see if it'll actually have enough juice to get this engine to turn over. Now, I've disconnected the coil on the truck just because I don't want the truck starting inside the shop, but our goal is to see if this engine will actually spin over fast enough to start. We can look at the current demand from the truck looking at this ohmmeter. I'm going to see if this battery has enough juice in it to get this engine to turn over, and then I'm going to hook up the supercapacitor. The engine's not turning over at all. So what I'm going to do is hook up the supercapacitor and allow it to charge the battery pack. I just hit the on override button, and what it's doing is charging up this unit. It needs to get to about 15 volts before we can attempt to have the engine spin over. The voltage is down below 5 now, as this supercapacitor is drawing energy out of the battery and charging. Okay, the unit indicates that it's ready to start, so I'm going to go ahead and try to start the truck. Okay, so it actually did a pretty good job of getting this engine to turn over, but it didn't last very long. I'm going to test the Audew next, so I'm going to push the boost button. Okay, the boost button is on, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get the engine to spin over. Looks like the voltage is climbing pretty quickly. Wow, that actually did very well. I'm really impressed with this little power pack. This engine spun over super fast, and this engine would have started had I not disconnected the coil. That little short run, the battery pack is down to 83%, which is really not that bad when you consider how quickly it made this engine spin over. The previous jumper probably provided some charge to this battery, so I went ahead and drained it back down to a very close level as before, and now what we're going to do is try out the Freight Viking to see how it does. Okay, it shows it's charged, so I'm going to see if this will spin the engine over. We'll give this one more try. Up next, we're going to test the Sanrock. This battery is once again drained. We're down to around 5.5 volts. All I can say is, wow, this thing did a lot better than the Harbor Freight jumper did. This is really amazing for such a small charger. They can spin an engine over that fast. This engine was drained down to such a low level. Very impressive job by the Sanrock. DB power is fully charged at 4 bars. We're going to see if this is going to do the job. Our voltage is over 14, so this should work well. Very impressive job by the DB power. Definitely got this engine spinning over fast enough to start, and it actually held up for quite some time before it finally gave out. Topvision's at 99%, so we're going to see if this will get the job done. The Topvision definitely seems to be the best so far. It really held on for a long time before giving up. These cables are definitely a little bit hot. I think we did put it to the test. Okay, we're down to about 88%. Up next, we're going to test the Noco Boost. It's fully charged. Not having much luck with the Noco. I'm going to try a different spot. The cables are getting pretty hot. Alright, it's showing that it should be charging up the battery. We're at 11.4 volts. It's just not producing enough voltage to get this engine to spin over, which is our problem. Alright, we're down to about 10.8 volts. Alright, we've got a light on indicating this thing is overheated. The Duracell is at 100%, so let's see how it performs. Okay, we're about 12.63 volts. Let's see how this does. So the Duracell just doesn't produce enough cranking amps to get this engine to spin over fast enough. We're allowed the Duracell about 5 minutes to charge this battery to see if it can get the engine going. It's been right at 5 minutes. The voltage is around 12.5, so we're going to see if this engine will spin over. This is a 1975 Ford 5000 diesel tractor with a 4.2 liter engine. I've disabled the fuel system on this tractor, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and use the 12 volt battery from the tractor, get this engine spinning over, and we'll see how much current it takes to get this engine to spin over. I disconnected the positive lead on this battery and it's only connected to the jumper. I'm going to go ahead and hook up the Audew jumper to see if it has enough power to get this engine to spin over. Wow, very impressive. So the Audew had enough power to spin over this diesel engine. So this is a pretty legit jumper in my opinion. Up next, we're going to see what the Harbor Freight Viking can do. Okay, not very good. Unfortunately, the Harbor Freight Viking was not going to get the job done. Up next is the Sanrock. The Audew definitely did better than the Sanrock. However, both the Audew and the Sanrock did a much better job than the Harbor Freight. The dB power and the Sanrock seem pretty much the same. I think the Audew actually did a little bit better than the Topvision. The GB40 Genius. Let's see how well it can do. Alright, unfortunately the GB40 just doesn't have enough power to get the engine to spin over. Up next we're going to see what the Duracell can do. A little bit better than the GB40, but definitely not enough to get this tractor started. I'm going to go ahead and put all those jumpers back inside the freezer to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll come back and see if they can still get this engine to turn over. These battery jumpers are around 0 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to see how they perform, starting with the Audew. Showing 90%. Let's see if we can do a little bit better than that. The Audew actually did pretty good considering the unit is right at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to try it one more time. Alright, the last time. Hey, not bad from the Audew. The Audew actually improved performance once I used it a couple times since it warmed up some. Okay, let's test the Harbor Freight Viking. Unfortunately, the Viking is not liking this cold temperature, and it looks like it's got an alarm and is not going to do the job. Up next is the Sanrock. It still needs to warm up. We'll try this a couple more times. We'll do it one more time. It took a little while for the Sanrock to finally warm up enough, but after 5 attempts, it actually spun the engine over fast enough to get it started. It took several attempts for the jump starter that's by dB power to get the job done, but it actually did spin the engine over a satisfactory rate in order to get the engine started. Testing Topvision. Pretty good job by the Topvision. Time to test out the GB40. Unfortunately, the Noco Genius is just not going to get the job done. We gave it several attempts, just like the other brands. The other brands actually warmed up enough to get the engine to spin over. So when you consider the price and the performance, in my opinion, the Audew won the showdown. It definitely did a tremendous job as far as starting that tractor, as well as the pickup truck. Definitely had plenty of amps to get the engine spinning over. As far as safety is concerned, the power button to the light is on the side of the jumper, and it's unlikely that it's going to get powered on if it's inside this carrying case. The Topvision did almost as good as the Audew and came in second place in my opinion. Overall, it did a terrific job for the price. I'm pretty sure that the Topvision, the Sanrock, and the DB Power are all made by the same manufacturer, even though they have different specifications. If you look at the jumper cables, they look the same, and these cases on these jumpers look very close. However, the Sanrock and the DB Power didn't seem to be quite as good as the Topvision, and I would say these two brands tied for third. I think the Noco Genius GB40 is a very high quality product. I do have a couple of critiques with it though. First off, for the price, it doesn't compete with the competition as far as producing amps. This product is definitely underpowered for the price range of around $100. The other units we tested were less and actually did a lot better. If the jump starter is inside this little bag, this bag is placed in a trunk and someone just throws something in the trunk, it could easily power up the device. For the price, there should be something a little bit more substantial than this little bag. The Harbor Freight Viking is just way overpriced. The competition did far better, and this unit just did not seem to do very well as far as actually jump starting the pickup truck or the tractor compared to the competition. The supercapacitor technology that's in the Autowit is very fascinating, but this is $130. This thing is huge. This thing takes several minutes to do its job, while a much smaller lithium-ion unit is going to cost a lot less and immediately deliver results. For that reason, I personally would not buy the Autowit. I have to admit, I definitely underestimated the potential that these lithium-ion batteries have. The Audew and the Topvision simply impressed with the ability to spin that tractor engine over at a pretty high rate, fast enough to get it started without any assistance from the tractor's battery. I'm definitely going to have one of these lithium-ion batteries in each of my vehicles in the future, just in case they're needed. All my video ideas, including this one, come from viewers, and I read and reply to as many comments as possible. So if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. As usual, just want to say thanks so much for watching the video. Please take care, and I look forward to next time.